with today's feedback forum. Here is our agenda. We'll look at a few engagement rules. We'll revisit a couple of items that you've seen before, but it's to share information and keep the information in front of you. And then we will move right into the focus of today's forum, which is to complete the business case document. As we move through the document, we will review a segment, and then we will pause after a section to see if there are any questions about that section before we move on. So if you have joined this meeting with your phone number, you might want to change that to your user information so that your attendance can be recorded. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter those questions in the chat. Arthi and Anthony will be monitoring the chat and will respond to any questions that come up in between segments or sections. So if you would, please post those questions in the Zoom chat, or if you have a question that requires immediate attention, please use the raise hand feature and we will immediately recognize that question. Again, we will have a Q&A session at the end for you to present any remaining questions. So with that being said, we'll have a quick look at the organizational structure just so everyone is aware of the management team in the IT EPMO organization. So of course, we have Rich Brenton, our Senior Director. The Manager of Operations position is currently vacant. The Manager of Scheduling is Nicole Johnson. Manager of the Controller team is Chris Analanis. And Manager of Project Management is Leah Singer. So those are the managers of those teams for your awareness. We currently send out the IT EPMO newsletter, and the next issue is currently under development. So this is your opportunity to share your information or your insights. We have a tip section, so if you have a tip that you think would benefit your fellow project managers, please feel free to email that content to the IT EPMO mailbox and enter a subject, newsletter content submission, so we can gather your feedback. Also, we'd like to keep it light. So if you have any funny project management related cartoons or graphics, go ahead and share your humor. Send that email as well to the ICMO mailbox with the subject newsletter content submission. Let me pause for a moment and ask that everyone on the line mute their phones so that we don't hear background noise or interference, and we sure appreciate your support with that. So again, this is information sharing. Here is our current training calendar. We expect that this training calendar will expand with content, and you will see the Q3 schedule published shortly, so that you will be aware of upcoming training or training events scheduled for July, August, and September. Currently, we have today on 5/10, we'll look at how to complete the business case document. We'll have PM refresher training on 5/17, and then on 5/24, we'll look at business continuity and disaster recovery and how that relates to the stage gate process. So that is upcoming training in May. So if you have a business case that you would like to bring for senior leadership review, here is the BCCT meeting schedule and the submission deadline. So as you'll see, the next meeting is on May 18th. That submission deadline was yesterday for that meeting. So if you have a document to prepare, you'll want to have it ready for the May 25th BCCT meeting, and that submission deadline is May 16th. Please be aware that your business case should be fully developed using the latest version of the template. earlier document versions will not be accepted for BCC2 prep or agenda scheduling. And that's because we can't have different versions of business cases in one presentation. So we'll ask you to be sure to download the latest version of that document, rename it to include the title of your project, and leverage that version, your local version, for your business case development. So speaking of business case development, we will jump right into how to complete the business case document. This is the document that you will reference to present your case to the senior leadership team during the BCCT meeting. So I am going to, you'll hear more in the future about these how-to documents. The IT EPMO team is developing how-to documents as reference documents that provide hands-on and direct information about how to accomplish various topics that project managers utilize in their day-to-day business. So we will take this opportunity to look at how to complete a business case document. So let me share my screen. And we will start with, at the very top of the document, with the process guideline. So the process guideline is at page 1 of the document, and it's to provide a bit of oversight and what you can expect, what's required, and what you should expect as you move through the process. As of right now, the product owner is the responsible party in this part of the process, unless a project manager is assigned. And at that point, the project manager will move the initiative through this process. Everyone at this point is likely familiar with this graphic. It's our stage gate process, and you are here in the process. At this point, you have gone through the create concept phase, and during the create concept phase, that's when you gather the information about your initiative. You should have an understanding of what the products that will be delivered as part of the initiative are. You should have a high-level understanding of the costs related or associated with the initiative, and you should have some idea of the risk associated with your initiative. This is the information you gather in the create concept, and your stakeholder team decides, yes, we do want to proceed with presenting a business case and moving to develop the full business case. So that brings us to this stage of the SGP, and you will see in earlier documents and earlier references, you may hear the term press release. So just be advised that the term press release is the same thing as a business case. So if you see that term, don't be confused by that. So at this point, you've moved through gate 1, and we are ready to develop our business case. One of the first things you'll want to do is to create a demand in ServiceNow. Let me see, we have a question in the chat. Is there a process to get seed money to work on the create concept phase and to work on develop business case? And Lorena, you are a GPM, so I would pose, and I don't see Naren on the line right now, and we can certainly take this back and validate that. But at this point, it would likely be a request to your sponsor, your project sponsor. But let us, Lorena, capture that question, and we will validate the response and bring that information to the entire team.
Thank you.
So thank you for.
I know I've run into some issues with that, because a lot of times they don't want us working on anything unless it's set up as a project. And sometimes to get to the developed business case, you have to do an RFP and to get those quotes. So there's some significant time that's spent on that. And in ServiceNow, it's not set up to spend time on that. So just wanted to bring that to you. Thank you.
Right. There's no way to accommodate or charge those costs too. So yes, I'm sure there is a project, Lorena, but let me not speak to that. Let me get us an official response and official guidance published around that, and we'll share that with the entire project management team. Thank you for bringing that question. So let's continue. We are at the point where you create the demand or your project request or press release. You will see those different terms. So again, that's all the same thing. You're creating the demand in ServiceNow, and you will need that demand number for your business case. So that's why you want to present it at this stage. Now that you've created your demand, we will move right into developing the business case document. And as we mentioned before, please be sure to leverage the latest version of the business case template. We ask you to do that because templates are revised. We try not to do it too frequently, but we do want to make it an effective tool for project managers. So when we receive feedback from project managers or from GPMs about the process or about the document, we want to be sure to incorporate that feedback. So that's why we ask you to be sure to download a copy of the template document, rename it with the name of your project, and leverage your local version. So we have some hyperlinks to reference documents here, your stage gate process playbook, your cost estimator. You should be leveraging the cost estimator to develop the cost associated with your effort. You will want to leverage the capital determination asset request form to make a determination whether any portion of your effort is capital. Let's see, Vikas, is a project created in Snow at this point? No, because it's not a project yet. What you're doing is creating a demand in ServiceNow, and we'll talk about that a little further downstream. So at this point, you have your reference documents here, and the next thing you want to do as you begin to develop your business case, we have several teams that have asked to be included and have visibility into the business case document. That's to ensure that your effort doesn't get downstream and there is some cost associated or some requirement related that causes your project to be placed on hold, or it even delays your project because now you have to address some requirement or cost associated with one of these functional areas. So be sure, as part of fully developing your business case, that all of these functional areas, if you can't get them in a meeting, be sure that they have visibility of your business case and that they provide you feedback. Either there's no impact associated with this area, or yes, we do see an impact and there may be a potential cost associated with that impact. So that's why you want to get that feedback very early on. And this is an area that is reviewed during the BCCT meeting by the senior leadership team. So let me just call attention to that. So when you get your business case more fully developed, and you're ready to present your business or deliver your business case to the IT EPMO team for addition to the BCCT agenda, you want to ensure that your demand is in a qualified state. And as you are in ServiceNow and working through your demand, there a separate how-to document on creating a demand will be published and made available to you so that you understand specifically what it takes to move your demand from one stage to the next. But to present your business case, your demand should be in a qualified state. Talking about moving the demand, that's outside the scope of this effort, and I'd like for us to get to the field by field review. So if you have questions related to creating a demand, just reach out to the team and we can address those. So Larry asks, if a newer version of BCCT, the business case form, is created after we begin filling out a prior version, do we need to submit the new version, or can we just use the version we started with? Larry, we ask that you use the latest version of the document to ensure that all of the teams have visibility that need to have visibility, and you don't get in the senior leadership review And one of those leaders asked, well, have you considered this area? And the area has not been considered. And what that does is it causes a delay for you to get your approval for initiative. You don't get the verbal approval during the BCCT meeting, you're asked to go away and address some other items. So to avoid delays, let's be sure to use the latest version of the BCCT document. And the versioning, there should not be major changes to the versioning at this point, but if there are, that will be communicated and published, and we ask that you use the latest version of the document. So we are at the point that we are ready. PM or the product owner is ready to submit the completed and fully developed business case document. Once you send your business case to the IT EPMO mailbox, we will confirm receipt. We'll say, yes, we've received your business case, and it will be added to the meeting agenda that you've identified. Next one upcoming is 5/18. And you will receive, not just you, but all of the stakeholders identified in that business case will be forwarded a copy of the meeting invitation. So you'll get that item on your calendar. The business case is presented by the product owner and the project team to senior leadership during the scheduled BCCT meeting. After the meeting, you will hear during the meeting if your effort is verbally approved. That means, yes, let's move forward with the formal e-vote for approval. That formal email is required to release funding. So that verbal approval is for us to proceed with distributing the e-vote to the voting members of the BCCT team. And after the meeting, you will receive an email stating the disposition of the business case and any approval decisions. You'll get meeting notes. If there were action items which are required, you'll get all of that information within 24 hours of the BCCT meeting. So let's assume that you received verbal approval during your business case presentation, and we are moving forward with the e-vote. We get the e-vote returned, and you'll get an email that says your initiative has received formal approval, and you'll get a copy of that formal approval for your record. Now we are at the point in which a project can be created. For that to happen, your demand must be in an approved state in ServiceNow for the project number to be generated. So just be advised of that. When you get that email that says, yes, you've received Zishan's verbal approval, you want to be sure that your demand is in an approved state so that we can move through the process as effectively and efficiently as possible. So the next thing that happens is you receive an email that says, your demand, a project number has been generated associated with your demand, and the EPMO management team, the scheduler, controller manager, manager of project management, all of them are copied on the fact that a new project has been generated. That alerts them to the fact that a resource assignment is required. So you will work with those teams to get a scheduling resource, scheduler assigned, a cost controller will be assigned, and your effort will begin to show up on project reports. So at this point, you should be ready to submit your SGP scorecard, because now you're at Business Challenge Gate 2 is complete. So if you have any questions about this process, let me pause here before we move into the field by field review. Do we have any questions about the process and how you move through the process? We covered a lot, but it's really very simple. You download the form, you make sure all the appropriate teams have visibility of your form, and you ensure that your effort is loaded into ServiceNow. Lorena said, who moves it to approved state? So Lorena, once you send, there's a link in ServiceNow that says send for approval. When the product owner or the project manager clicks the send for approval link, it goes to the sponsor, and once the sponsor responds approved, that's what moves it to the approved state. So that's how we move from a qualified demand to an approved demand. Once the sponsor clicks approve, shouldn't it be the EPMO to do it after the BCCT meeting? That is how we actually document sponsor's approval, is by the sponsor approving the demand. So that's how it moves. What the EPMO does is generate the project number once we are sure that the sponsor has approved this. Don asks, is this document available in the source or in SharePoint? This document is currently available in SharePoint, but the team is working to consolidate the source in SharePoint. So you will very soon see a link from the source. But for right now, your first point of reference is SharePoint. You will find all templates in the Tools and Templates folder at the IT EPMO SharePoint site.
So just to add some information down there, we are coming out with a lot of how-to documents, and in which one of the how-to document would be that how a demand to be created, how to move between the stages, and who is responsible, and screenshots are provided in those documents. It will be like a helping document for the PM or the GPM, whoever is doing that. So a lot of such documents are being prepared, they are being reviewed and will be rolled out shortly. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, there would be a document for how to create a demand and move it through the stages.
Let me take a moment and revisit, Naren, now that we have you on the line. Lorena posed the question early on. Let me go back in the chat. Yes, Lorena posed the question, is there a process to get seed money to work on the create concept phase and to work on develop the business case for them to charge time to? Is there a process to accommodate that?
So generally, when we look at it, we also call this as phase 0, right? We want to work on a project, try to understand the high-level business requirements, come up with the effort and cost estimate. We need somewhere to charge it. So as of today, one of the processes that we follow is that the hours are charged to a standing order and then journaled out to the project once the project is created. That's one way, if it is a small effort. If it is a large effort where you are involving a lot of discussions with the vendors or with the technical teams where you need a lot more time, we almost convert into a phase 0 and we need seed capital for it, seed investment. So basically we will go back to the business and say, hey, we want to have a phase 0 situation here because the effort is very complicated or highly impactful. So we need an assessment phase here, and we need X amount of dollars, and the business can approve that dollars, and then we can move on with that amount, right? So either way, the dollars are in the sense they are estimated, shared with the senior leadership team, either from the IT side or from the business side, in order to conduct the first phase of it. Small, medium scale projects really do not spend that much time or effort. So that is adjusted into the standing order, and then it is adjusted to the project once it is created and WBS is available for charging. Does that answer?
Yeah,
so I know that in the past, Naren, but as you know, we've had some large projects where we needed seed money, and it doesn't fit because the only process to get money now is the BCCT, and a lot of the information in that isn't applicable when you're getting seed money. So I'm just putting forth that perhaps we need to have a lightweight process created to allow us to do phase 0. Yeah,
the phase 0 is definitely, I agree with you, Lorena, that there should be a very lightweight where we just estimate the cost and approximately say, hey, we need X amount of dollars for doing the phase 0. We present it to the BCCT. That process is not yet finalized. How do we do for phase 0? But as of now, a couple of projects have come in which have just mentioned that they are going through the phase 0, scope it out. All these reviews and other things, they have mentioned basically that phase 0 will cover all these things, and we just put the dollars and present it. It is generally that a lightweight BC document is presented to the senior leadership team and a project is created. right?
Right, but we'll also want a lightweight project type too as well, because you don't need all the formal gates and everything just for the seed money.
No, you,
piece,
you may
right?
not even cross the first stage, right? You will.
Yep.
Phase 0 is up to creation of the BC document and creating a formal project. Let's say you created a project with phase 0 and you get approved with the full funds. Then you come back to BCCT and say, with reference to the project that was created, here is the additional approvals that we got for the full project. So then a decision can be taken by the teams whether to continue with that project or create a new project to keep a track of these activities. Generally, in the last cases, what we saw, they continued with the phase 0 project and then with the rest of the project. So it is just like transitioning it from phase 0 to full implementation.
Yep. But I'm just bringing that up, having just gone through that, Naren. I think we can work together to improve that process, because there were a lot of bumps in the road with putting it into the new process.
Sure,
so,
sure,
as
we'll
you know,
do that, Lorena.
we can take that offline.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that fits nicely into Marty's question. Has the concept of a phase 0 been properly socialized with the business areas? And I think, Naren, as this matures, as the phase 0 process matures, we can ensure that it is properly socialized and we're fully socialized. And there.
Any other questions you have?
Yeah, I think it's important that it's properly socialized, only because to set proper expectations for the funding components of this. That's all. That's why I bring it up.
Agreed.
Great, thank you for that, Marty. Well, we are at 10:30, so I'd like for us to get through the document, and I'll go section by section, and I will pause in between sections to field any questions. Oops. So the first section is your overview section. You add the name of your initiative here. This is where you add the demand number that you created earlier. We've noted that your demand should be in a qualified state, and these are the stakeholders for your business case. At this point, you may not have a project manager assigned, and you may not have a technical lead or an analyst. If not, you just leave those blank and add the sponsor, owner, and GPM information. The next field is an executive summary. And again, this is an executive summary, which is a clear and concise description of the product or project that you're proposing. So what are the objectives and what will be delivered? And it should be in an executive where the senior leaders can look at this block and quickly understand what you're planning to achieve with the effort. You will want to add the benefits here. And this is an area that we tend to get quite a bit of feedback about. If you list that you have a benefit, it should be quantified. For example, if you say, well, we will save X number of man hours. I've heard senior leaders ask, okay, how are you going to capture and report on that measurable item at the end of this initiative? When you deliver it, did we save the number of man hours that you stated would be a deliverable of this effort? If you're saying that will reduce headcount, what type of headcount are you going to reduce, and how will that be quantified? Does it result in dollars saved? So just be sure that you can quantify your benefits and clearly speak to how you will report those quantified benefits downstream. So implications of not approving. What is the impact or the implication if senior leadership team does not approve this effort? It could mean that we will be out of compliance, regulatory compliance. It could mean there are fines associated, or we're at risk of being fined. That's the kind of information you want to add under the implications of not approving. Will this impact the scorecard app? We have a list. The scorecard applications are hyperlinked here. So if you are not sure, you can visit that hyperlink and see the list of scorecard applications so that you can make the determination if one of those applications are impacted, and if so, provide a description of the impact. Now you want to identify a list of the expected products or deliverables. So just a bulleted list of what will be delivered with delivery of this product or solution. Do we have any questions about this first page of the business case? Pretty simple, right? So let's move on to other details and team reviews. This is where we have had some expansion. So of course you want to add your initiative name, the name of your project or initiative. Here is a hyperlink to the cost estimator tool. You will want to, this is a tool that you'll leverage to develop the costs associated with your effort. And this is where you will include costs related to your scheduler and cost controller resources. So that is one item you'll want to visit. So your estimate assumptions. So you have made an estimate about your cost. What factors contributed to that assumption? Is it that perhaps this is a solution that our team is familiar with and we've implemented this before? Is it that we are working with a vendor that is highly knowledgeable and has provided a firm, it could be a fixed cost engagement? That's the kind of information you want to add, the factors that contribute to the cost estimate assumption. What is your estimate maturity? Now, if you look at our stage gate process, at this level of your effort, you're at 50% or less estimate maturity. But you could very well have an effort that is 70% mature because you're in a fixed cost engagement, or it's something that the team is familiar with, you know every aspect about it. So you're a little more confident with your level, with your cost estimate maturity. So you don't necessarily have to be at 50%. It depends on the nature of your effort. Your funding methodology. Will the effort be funded by IT, or is it LOB funded, or is it blended? Is it partially funded by LOB and partially funded by IT? So if that's the case, you'll want to identify the funding source here, the line of business, that's the funding source, or you would say IT funded there. Capital determination form approval. You definitely want to have a look at capital determination, because if there's any aspect of your effort that can be capitalized, we want to take advantage of that, and you will be asked if we can capitalize any of the costs associated with your effort. So you don't want to be in a position where you have not even made that assessment. So you'll see a hyperlink to the capital determination asset request form here for your convenience. Is it a multi-year effort? Are you going to start on it in September of this year, and it will deploy in June of next year? So yes, it's multi-year, and you'll want to identify or state the years that the effort covers. Is this a technology solution? So you just identify if it's on-premise or if it's a cloud solution, and if any future projects or investments are needed to maintain the solution. If so, provide a description of the requirements around future projects or investments. Is it vendor provided? Yes or no? And if it's yes, will the solution be built to vendor specs, or is there customization? You want to add that here. Does the initiative require new hardware? If yes, you want to be sure that the infrastructure team has reviewed your business case, and you validate or confirm that they have by entering yes below. Is there any regulatory impact associated with this effort? If yes, you provide the description, and I would propose that you don't just say yes, you provide a description of the impact, and especially if there are potential fines or other regulatory risks, you want to outline that here. So we talked earlier about the other teams external to the IT EPMO that have asked to have visibility of business cases. And we propose that you schedule a business case review meeting, which includes all of these teams, and we provided the grid above with the contact names, but this is where you enter their response. So for example, we won't go through all of these, but for example, the business continuity representative says, yes, there are BC requirements, and here's the impact. And you know what? There's a cost associated with business continuity, or there's a cost associated with the disaster recovery. You want to capture that here, and you want to include those costs in your cost table below. Conversely, you may receive a response that, yes, we've reviewed it, but there is no impact. So you want to state such, reviewed, no impact. You want to clearly communicate that each one of these representatives has reviewed this effort, and they either have an impact or they don't. Any questions about this page before we move on? So let me caution you that each one of these areas has senior leadership representation at the BCCT meeting, and if their resource has not been engaged, that's one reason that you will not receive a verbal approval of your initiative. You'll have to go back and revisit with that team to be sure that there are no requirements or costs associated. So please do take advantage of getting that in front of these team members sooner rather than later. Now we move to our timeline. This is your high-level milestone scheduling, which should include your committed delivery date. I will caution you here that when you submit your business case, these are the dates that are associated with your project when your project spins off, and these are the dates that the project is reported on and held accountable for. And to make changes to these dates requires a change request and justification document. So be sure to think through these high-level milestones and be somewhat firm with these, because these are the milestones or the dates that your project will report to. Your implementation risks. Again, you're at probably 50% confidence here, but these are some of the high-level risks. You've conducted a risk assessment, a high-level risk assessment, and determined that here are some of the risks associated or that could impact our ability to successfully deliver this effort. It could be that you're concerned about hardware being delivered. You're concerned about resource availability. Any risk at this level, high-level risk, should be documented here. And I will note here to visit the risk and issue playbook, specifically at slides 17 and 18, show you how to calculate your probability and your impact, or determine your probability score, determine your impact score to calculate your risk index. So that's what you should have here. You should have your score. Your risk index is a factor of probability times impact, gives you your risk index. So please do visit slides 17 and 18 at the risk and issue playbook. And as Naren mentioned earlier, we have several how-to documents around specific tasks such as these. You'll see those published shortly. Your contingency rationale. You'll want to note how much contingency, what your contingency percentage is. So perhaps I am 50% confident, and so I'm going to reserve a pretty hefty contingency budget. You know what? I'm going to reserve maybe 30 or 40% contingency, but you'll want to explain why. You'll say, well, I'm reserving a 30% contingency because I have not confirmed X, Y, or Z. So you'll note your contingency percentage and you'll explain your contingency requirements. Next item are dependencies. Are there any tasks or items external perhaps to your effort that you are dependent upon for you to move forward with your effort? It may be that, yeah, it's a solution implementation and we are dependent upon hardware delivery, or we have an aggressive timeline and we need this effort approved. We need to be able to proceed by X date. You want to share those dependencies here. Alternatives considered. This is an area that gets attention as well. Senior leadership wants to know that you have thought through this effort pretty completely and provided and made a determination, evaluated multiple solutions and determined that, yep, the solution that you have chosen is the best direction for us to move forward with. So you'll want to identify the alternative solutions that you considered when you evaluated your solution and list those here. And if there are no alternatives considered, you want to provide an explanation. It may be that it's an internal solution that you're updating, so there are no alternatives. You just want to clearly state that here. RPA consideration. If there's a bot development or modification of an existing bot, you will need to enter a yes here. So just be sure you consider bot development or bot modification. And if the answer here is no, just clearly explain why you have a no here. If you have identified your vendors at this point, you will list them here. If you have vendors being considered at this point, you will list them here. Before we move on to the next page, do we have any questions about any of these fields? And we want to be sure that these fields are, the document is fully completed and all fields have the appropriate content. We will move on to the cost. So again, you'll enter the name of your initiative here, and when you enter your values in the cells, we will use a $ with no trailing decimal. If there is a zero value, you just don't enter any cost associated. So don't enter $0 amounts in any of the fields, because you want the table to be as clear and uncluttered, concise as possible. So that's the format for your entry. You'll total the 22 column, the 2023 column, 2024 column. Your grand total for your capital cost is here. You do the same thing with your O&M cost. Your total implementation cost up here is the sum of your capital costs and your O&M costs. So do we have any ongoing costs, or will costs be reduced or avoided? You'll want to add that. One example of that is record retention costs. Remember, those are one of the areas that we ask you to consider. So if there are record retention costs associated with your effort, you'll want to add those dollar amounts in this field, and then again, you will total it by year. When the form is completely filled and you have a fully developed business case, that's when you'll submit it to the IT EPMO mailbox. Do we have any questions at this point? Well, great. That is the field by field review of the developed business case document. And any questions can be delivered, can be provided, or can be addressed here. We will also capture this chat so that we have record of any of the questions that have been addressed. And if any items remain open, we can follow up on those. So a couple closing comments. As we move through the stage gate process and after your project is initiated, more and more we're having reporting requirements, and that's to ensure that the senior leadership team has an accurate review of our IT project portfolio. So you will want to ensure that you are providing quality data and that that data is validated. If you have any questions around the data or the expectations or what a field means or what content is expected, please send us an email so that we can provide you that clarity. If you have any questions around project data reporting, when should you expect a report, or when should you have your data entered? You can send those questions to the IT EPMO mailbox, and we will work to get you the clarity that you need to be sure that you can meet your reporting requirements. And just be advised that the data that you capture at ServiceNow is the data that is leveraged for project reporting requirements. So please be sure that when you submit your project status report, that your ServiceNow data is current and valid. And if you need any help with getting data updated or corrected, please do reach out to the IT EPMO. Here is where assets are located at the IT EPMO SharePoint. If you don't know where that SharePoint site is or you need a link to it, please just send us an email. We're happy to forward you that link. And here is how you can reach us. Of course, you can submit a ticket in ServiceNow. Tickets are tracked and they're reported. So you have full visibility of when you submitted your ticket and if your ticket has been addressed. And it gives us a way to capture metrics on addressing tickets. So that's your first mechanism, is to submit a ticket through ServiceNow in the service catalog, and you see the path there. You can also reach out to the IT EPMO mailbox, and we also host office hours every Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. And it's another great forum in which individual project managers bring their issues or they bring their questions to that forum, and we work to achieve resolution during office hours, and other project managers have an opportunity to experience how the problem is resolved. So if they encounter a like issue, they know how to address it. So please do take an opportunity to join us during the IT PMO office hours on Thursdays at 10. And that concludes today's session of the GPM PM Forum. The floor is open if you have any additional questions.
I have one question.
Sure.
At this point of the business case, none of the project team or technical team or SMEs have been engaged. Who would provide all these responses to the questions, like the risks and the benefits and all those questions that are asked? Would that be the product owner, or is there like an SME that would be available at this point?
Right. So if there is subject matter expert requirement, your GPM or your sponsor may be able to direct you to a specific subject matter expert, and you would reach out to that person for guidance. All of the information associated with this effort, you should be able to interact with the product owner, the GPM, and if necessary, the sponsor for any funding questions or information like that. But your product owner and your GPM should be able to assist the project manager with getting any information. For example, risks, identifying risks. The product owner and the GPM would be able to help a project manager identify risks. You can identify risks by looking at lessons learned from other projects, like projects. Those are ways that you can begin to identify potential risk. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, thank you.
I think let's peel off here. And so at the stage of business case, the idea is that there is nobody on the team, right? There is no official project manager assigned, no official teams are assigned to this. This is purely an effort between the product owner and the group product manager. But a project manager may be there who is working on another project, is assisting to procure, to get the data, covered into the BC. But the primary responsibility of getting all these questions and the data into BC lies with the product owner and the group product manager. Okay, with the experience they have, with the exposure they have, they may also bring in other resources and other artifacts of other projects to come up with all these answers and the data. Okay, so but the understanding is the primary responsibility of business case lies with the product owner and the group product manager.
Great, thank you, Naren. Do we have any other questions?
Alita, this is Lorena again. It's not so much a question. It's just more of an overall observation and comment. And I agree with Naren that we don't have project managers assigned at this particular point in time. So when we get the BCC document approved, we're going to hand it over to a PM. Sometimes we have to outsource the PM and bring them on board. They may change those dates because now they're going to actually learn more about the project, have their professional insights into the timing. So it's going to be very hard to stick to the dates that a GPM and a product owner put into the BCCT document. That was the first I'm hearing that the dates of the project are going to be measured against that. I thought that they were measured once the project is actually approved and started in ServiceNow. So sometimes, things can happen, and although it was approved at the BCCT, by the time the accounting's set up, I mean, it could be another month before the project, and you hire the PM, could be a while before the project actually gets started. So is there any thoughts or considerations for that going forward?
Yeah, absolutely, Lorena. So as you look at the deliverables of each of these stages, right? The business case, once it converts into a project, it has the initial estimated dates, right? These are very high level estimated dates. But the actual picture will emerge once the project is initiated. Initial discussions and the higher requirement gathering sessions are at that time we are rebaselining the dates. So at the project initiation is that stage where you're absolutely right. Those observations like getting a project manager, getting the initial discussions with the business, and then finalizing to some extent a better confidence of the effort. That's where more of this SGP is a maturity model. As we go from stage to stage, our estimates of cost and the effort become tighter and tighter. So you rebaseline them in project initiation. You're right.
Perfect. That's the way I thought it was, but I thought I heard something different in today's meeting. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
No, that's accurate, Lorena. And I think to Naren's point, when you look at the stage gate process, you see the estimated level of maturity, and the justification document is what we use to make adjustments to date or cost. And that's expected.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Thank you. That's a great question and valuable for other project managers to hear that feedback. So it is 10:55. If there are no remaining questions, we will go ahead and close this session of the GPM PM Feedback Forum. And I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us. We hope that this has been beneficial to you, and we look forward to publishing additional how-to documents for your reference. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
So one request I have here is, before we close off, all the GPMs and PMs, if you have any ideas or any thoughts that you would like to incorporate in the SGP or in any documents that you would like us to prepare and share it with you for future references, let us know. Okay, share your thoughts to the EPMO mailbox. We'll be able to pick them up and start accommodating them. Okay. Take care, then. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.